For the first video in the Build a Day series, I wanted to do something that would help to set up the future build videos. I've got this old tripod that's wonderfully adjustable and stable, but I've got just one problem with it. It's 2023 and most folks don't use regular cameras with standard hardware anymore when our phones have such great quality already. So that'll be today's project, designing and 3D printing a piece of hardware to replace the existing bracket that can hold my phone nicely. Should make for a nice and short couple hours start to finish build. After spending some time with the dial caliper and the old bracket to get some measurements, we begin digitally replicating it, so we know we'll have a nice fit. When 3D modeling, it's helpful to always be thinking in terms of the symmetry, so you're not remaking the same thing. Thankfully for this part, the reflection symmetry is pretty simple. Usually we can start from one face of a model to use as a datum and reference our features from there. But in this case, there's an overhanging lip over the edge, so if we were to do that, we'd end up extruding the sketch from two different planes. By starting in the center, we can just symmetrically extrude from either side, with differing amounts for the top and bottom of the sketch, to build out the lip and base of the bracket in one feature. Now that we have a base that we know will fit well, we can start adding the phone holder to it. There's no one way to do this really, but I took a few more measurements of my phone case to inform the shape and placement of the curves that will cradle it. This might be enough as is, and we could leave the sides flat for simplicity, but I've opted to give them a gentle hourglass figure, so if I want to utilize rubber bands in the future to hold the phone in place, for an angled or portrait shot, I'd have the flexibility to do so. Plus, it just looks nicer and saves a bit of resin in the print process, so why not? Last but not least, let's transition the overhang of the phone holding section to the sides of the bracket, so it can hold up to a bit more abuse if the tripod ever falls over, or I simply drop the bracket at some point. Stereolithography 3D printing, or SLA printing for short, is what I'll be using today, which takes a liquid resin and cures it very precisely and very quickly with UV radiation to harden it into a solid piece of plastic. It's a wonderful process that gives tremendous fidelity going from model to print. However, compared to the more common type of 3D printing used in the home, the prints are quite a bit more brittle, so usually it's a good call to avoid hard 90-degree angles that can concentrate stress. Now that we've got that done, we'll export the 3D model as an STL file, load that into the Slicer software, which lets us reposition and support the model relative to the build plate, as well as translate the visual into line-by-line machine instructions for the specific printer and resin used for this build. This style of printing actually prints upside down, so when thinking about positioning and support, you want to minimize overhangs and low angles from that direction. In this case, we can just use the auto support function built into the Slicer, since there's nothing too complicated that would need extra supports anywhere, and I'll keep it solid since it's not too big anyway and extra durability can't hurt. Now that we're all set, it's just a matter of exporting to the printer and starting it up. Sorry about the little bit of a shake in the video here. After this print's done, that shouldn't be a problem in the future. I don't know about you guys, but that dip of the build plate into the resin is just so satisfying to watch. The print process itself happens under the surface, so there's nothing too interesting to see there. But if you guys are interested, I could set up a time-lapse of a print in the future, if you wanted to see the model just slowly rise out of the goo. And that's it for our first build of the Build a Day series. Start to finish, this took 4 hours, and I was able to use the print time to record and edit together all this, so I've still got plenty of time left to put the tools down and look inward to build a better day for myself. That's all for this build though, so until next time, stay creative.